Hello and welcome to episode 90 of the Wisdom from the Akasha podcast. My name is Suzie. I am your host and I'm an Akashic Records teacher and practitioner. Today I want to offer you up a self-reflection question, and it is, have you swapped one dogma for another? And I want to get into what dogma is, why it's important that we acknowledge and understand when we are doing this, so that we can continue to evolve as souls in this human experience. So dogma, as defined by the Oxford Languages Dictionary, is a principle or a set of principles laid down by an authority as incontrovertibly true. Cambridge Dictionary is a fixed, especially religious, belief or set of beliefs that people are expected to accept without any doubts. Okay, so dogma is this way of living that there are these certain infallible rules and beliefs, and I have to do something a certain way because somebody told me to at some point. Now, Sadhguru, who I love his books, I love his videos, I think he's a fabulous spiritual teacher, always refers to the fact that one of the quickest ways to stagnate on your spiritual journey is to hold a fixed belief. And I'm paraphrasing, I'm not directly quoting there. But this I have found throughout my own spiritual journey to be very true. The minute that I hold on to a belief about something that I know for certain it's going to cause a contraction in my energetic field, and I'm not going to be open to the new. I'm not going to be open to continual evolution and expansion, which is what the spiritual journey is all about. So that's what we're talking about today. Now, dogma is often associated with religion. And as I understand it from my work in the Akashic Records, is that all religions were established with a living spark, okay? So this living conscious energy, usually embodied by a being who has become enlightened. So all religions throughout the world has started with this spark. And then over time, what happens is the religion becomes dogmatic because this spark has gone from the religion and it's just become a set of rules and a set of beliefs. Now, sometimes this can take much longer, this spark can take much longer to die out than the actual individual who is embodying that impetus for the religion. So it isn't a case that as soon as this enlightened individual has died, that the spark for that movement has died. It can live, but it doesn't tend to go on forever because, of course, we are evolving, so things need to change. And what often happens is the teachings of an individual or a system are put into rules, they're codified. And then it just becomes a set of rules, a set of beliefs that people are following because they were told to. And that might be they were told by their parents, they were told by their religious leader, whatever it was. Now, there is nothing wrong with this. For certain individuals, having a dogmatic religion is really helpful for them, especially in respect of their spiritual journey. They really find that having a set of rules, a set of beliefs helps give them some guidance and give them some parameters to work within. They get a set of rules. They know that if they do this, that's good. And if they do that, not so good. And they have ways and means of dealing with that. For certain people, that really works. And I'm not discounting that or anything like that. But for other people, and I suspect most of you listening, for those people who are more interested in the spiritual journey, the expansion and the evolution, the desire is to experience God, to experience divine union, to experience nirvana, enlightenment, whatever it is. Okay, but so it's more about the experience than what are the rules I need to follow. Now, this turning dogmatic is not just to do with religions, it happens with all spiritual traditions. So a lot of even more esoteric spiritual paths were established by somebody. That person has since transitioned, and then the movement, the belief system continues on for a little bit, and then it starts to get a bit contractive and it starts to get quite dogmatic. So what you'll often see in spiritual traditions is people are sharing how they got to their point of enlightenment or awakening. And what can happen is the people who follow these people will try to recreate the events and circumstances and situations to become like that person. And that isn't how it works. Any of you who've had any form of awakening, spiritual experience, however you want to define these things, knows that it's going to be very unique to you. How you get there, it's going to be very unique to you, and the experience itself is going to be very unique. So what works for one person isn't necessarily going to work for another person. It's not a case of just follow the leader and follow what the leader did. Now, this is not to say that spiritual teachers are not helpful. Of course they are. But it's when it becomes, okay, this is how they did it, therefore I have to do it this way, that it becomes problematic. So I want you to take this understanding of dogma and invite you to question yourself in respect of, where do I have these beliefs that are fixed? Where do I sit in my life and think, okay, well, this is how this person got there. These are the rules that they followed. This is what I need to do. It is completely normal on your spiritual journey that you're going to change, you're going to evolve, you're going to be drawn to different things, different practices all of the time. And what I see a lot is that people will have certain practices, certain things that they use on their spiritual journey to support their expansion. And then it becomes that they're doing it just for the sake of doing it. They're not actually feeling like that practice is supporting them anymore, but because they've been doing it for so long, or because somebody told them to do it, they continue to do it and they start to stagnate. And then their own spiritual journey starts to go into that dogmatic stream. This is something I see a lot with people, especially if you've been brought up in a religion and you're used to there being a set of rules. This is what you do on this day. This is what you do on this day. And it can be really hard to come into the spiritual journey. And for some people who have left a religion, part of the allure and part of the excitement of the spiritual journey can be that they don't have to follow a set of rules and a set of guidelines. And initially that can be very exciting for people, but we are human. We like to have an ABC. We like linear, we like to understand. And it can be very normal that as you're going through your spiritual journey that you start to pick up practices and things that really, really work for you, and making your own little dogma about it. So saying, okay, on this day I'm going to do this, and on this day I'm going to do this. Now, if this works for you and it feels supportive and it feels helpful and you feel like you're still expanding, that is great. That is beautiful. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is when you're doing things just for the sake of doing them and you're not actually feeling that they're supportive anymore. Okay, this is just an invitation to identify when that's happening, and also permission if you need it. And, you know, who am I to give permission for this at all? But permission just to drop whatever isn't serving you anymore. Okay, it's okay to do that. It's okay to find a practice or a teaching or something really, really helpful for a certain period of time, and then it doesn't necessarily resonate with you anymore. It's okay to say goodbye to it, to let it go. It may be that in a year's time, 3 years' time, 10 years' time, that you go back to that practice, that you need it again, and that it does become helpful. But understand that it's completely normal, especially if you're a woman, to change things up, to really be paying attention to, okay, what does my energy need right now? What does my spiritual practice need right now? Not what does that person on the internet say they should do. If you've listened to my episodes with other guests, you'll know I'm always talking about these very complicated spiritual morning or spiritual evening routines that people have. And they're great and they're wonderful. And if they help people, that's fine. But I also think that it can put a lot of pressure on people, this kind of pressure to perform and to make sure you've got an extra 3 hours in the morning before your day starts. And it's just not practical if you're a busy working parent, if you have a lot on. It's just not practical and it's not necessary, okay? It doesn't make you more or less spiritual if you have a very complicated routine than anybody else. A lot of the time, things will be getting done for the sake of ticking a box, not that there's actually any benefit out of. So my invitation to you is to identify where you're doing that, drop those things and really feel into what is going to be supportive and what is going to help me stay in alignment to my soul and stay on track with the evolution of my soul. So I hope you found this episode helpful, and I will see you next week for the next episode.